What's up, my homies? Today we are going to talk about the most important questions that you need to ask your contractor before you hire them.
Question number 1, are you licensed and insured?
We get asked a lot like why it's important to use a licensed and insured contractor, and really what it comes down to is liability. If you, for example, use a contractor that is not licensed or does not have insurance, then if anything goes wrong throughout that project, then that basically becomes you as the homeowner, it becomes your responsibility if anything goes wrong. And I can't tell you how many times. I mean, I would probably say with every single project that we do, something is bound to go wrong, whether it be a small thing or even a large thing. But I would say, like, for us as a licensed contractor, as a licensed and insured contractor, if something, for example, catastrophic goes wrong throughout the course of a project, like, we have all of the qualifications and we have those liability protections through our insurance to where if something does go wrong, like, we are protected, and that makes you protected financially in a catastrophic type of situation.
But isn't it cheaper if I just hire somebody who doesn't have to pay those extra bills?
Well, it's definitely cheaper, but
Pretty cost the same as ugly.
it's cheaper up front. But again, like, nothing goes perfect throughout a job, and there's always a risk that something could go wrong. I was actually having this conversation with a person just the other day. They were building literally a 5,000 square foot barn on their property, and they got all the way to insulating the house. When they did the spray insulation, the insulation caught on fire. Like, it never dried, and I guess with this type of insulation, it got so hot, it actually caused the insulation to catch fire. The entire barn burned down. This is a catastrophic situation. I'm only using this as an example because this just goes to show this contractor was luckily licensed and insured. It was like a $2 million insurance payout that basically covered this, but it covered the contractor, it covered the homeowner, so they were able to do what they needed to do to go in and rebuild what they needed to rebuild. But this is just, we have kitchens where maybe a pipe burst. Like, literally just this past weekend, we had a pinhole that caused a leak in one of our remodeling jobs. It didn't cause there wasn't any insurance claim that was needed, but if, for example, that flooded their whole basement, then we probably would have had to tap into our general liability insurance. Like, these are just examples of very important protections. And these are like a little pinhole in a pipe is a common thing that can happen throughout a remodel. And if you just don't have that protection because you're working with a contractor that that's not licensed or insured, then you're not gonna get if you're a contractor, you're not gonna get insured if you don't have a license, right? So licensed and insured is critical, and it really comes down to protection and responsibility for the work and for everything, both for the homeowner and for the contractor.
Question number 2, how many projects are you working on and how many crews do you run at one time during my project?
Well, why is this important? I mean, this is important because I can't tell you how many times times we tell a customer a kitchen project is going to take 6 to 8 weeks. And their mind is almost blown by that because they work with other contractors where it's like, or they hear of other contractors, or maybe their neighbor got a kitchen remodel done and the project took 3 or 4 months. I mean, it really does happen. I mean, we get done with kitchens in 5 to 6 weeks and people's minds are blown. And the reason for that is the amount of projects you can take on. It just depends how big your company is. But a critical question to ask your contractor is how many projects they have going on, and probably how many teams or how many crews they have, because you need to make sure that they can handle that load. Like, yes, of course, a contractor is going to want to do your kitchen. They're going to want to get paid to do your project, right? But if they take on your project and they don't have the bandwidth, then they could very well be in a situation where they're spreading themselves too thin, and your what should take 6 to 8 weeks kitchen or your should take 3 to 4 weeks bathroom ends up taking months and months, and that's just a bad situation to be in because, we get customers that ask us, hey, like, what can I use in my kitchen or what can I use in my bathroom while you guys are doing the remodel? And the answer to that is nothing. Like, you can't use anything in that space. And to be out of kitchen for 6 to 8 weeks is already a huge inconvenience. To be out of kitchen for 3 to 4 months, no thank you. Like, that's a big no-no. So that's why it's important to ask your contractor how many projects they have going on and if they have the bandwidth to be able to handle it.
Question number 3, during the project, who is my main point of contact?
Well, that's a great question because things are always going to come up during the course of a remodel, and there are so many just kind of little decisions that you need to make that are just inevitable, right? Like, there are so many little decisions that, you as the homeowner, because it's your house and because it's your remodel, and a good contractor is going to want things to look good for you, and they're going to want you to be happy with it. So they don't want you. not everybody, I would say most people don't just want, even if you have a design management team, most people don't just want the contractor and designer to go in and just do everything and just be totally hands off. Like, so there are decisions that need to be made along the way. There are questions that need to be asked. So it's a great question, like, who do I contact? Who do I talk to? Well, the way that we do it, and I think this, I mean, I can't speak for other contractors, but the way that we do it, which our customers have seemed to be very pleased with, is we basically set kind of expectations up front. We have a sheet. We basically clarify who their project manager is, who their design manager is. If there is an assistant project manager, we define who that is. And then we have basically email chains and communication, text message threads with everybody on them so that they know precisely who they need to talk to. We also assign their foreman, like who's going to be on site daily with them. We tell them who that's going to be on a daily and weekly basis. That way, our customers, they always know who to talk to or who to ask if they have any questions. Then it's like, okay, I can ask my foreman this question. If he can't answer it, it escalates kind of up to the assistant project manager. If he can't answer it, then it escalates up maybe to the design manager and then maybe to the highest end as the project manager for any questions. But it's almost like we just kind of have a chain of command for every single project, which we make very clear to our customers. And that allows them for some clarity on who they should contact if they have any questions. Worst case scenario, they can send a mass text to everybody, and then we just kind of swarm it to make sure the customer gets the answer to their question.
Yeah, there's always preferences for a client, and the project manager may know things that the design manager doesn't, that the client doesn't, and everybody has to communicate and collaborate in order to get the best result.
Yeah, and I would ask you, I mean, it took us this long to introduce Tara into the video, but Tara is one of our designers here for our company, and I mean, I guess the question that I would ask you is, because there's a lot of overlap almost in the project management and the design management, right? Like those lines are definitely blurred. Mm-hmm. But like a question, like I would say, typically, it's important that both of us are included in all the communication with our customer because, again, like there could be a design management question that comes from the customer, but it's also relevant to the project management, and it could also mean like something needs to be purchased, which, in our roles we both have that responsibility. But like I would say, as far as like why would you say as the design manager throughout the course of a project, like why is it important for you to be a point of contact for the customer, and why would it be important for you to check in with your customer throughout the course of a project?
Well, there's always design decisions that a foreman or a project manager is not thinking about. So if you want something to be designed a certain way, maybe the foreman can do it, maybe he can't. If he can't do it, we figure out another solution. The project manager is looking at cost and timing, and all of those things play a part too. So everybody needs to collaborate and give their information, because the client, ultimately, we want you to be happy, but there are constraints that we have to deal with in terms of renovations. If we all talk together and figure out a solution that everybody's happy with, that works. Us just making decisions in a vacuum, unilaterally or collaterally, doesn't make sense.
Yeah. I mean, I would just say like, and this has been years and years of us learning this, right? And I would, and to be honest with you, like we've learned a lot the hard way. Like we've had customers that we haven't communicated enough with, and like we're not claiming to be perfect in any way. But I think you can almost what you should make sure that you do, or make sure that your contractor does, is just err on the side of over communication, right? Like it's so much more helpful to just like almost like talk too much and to put too much, ask too many questions than it is to ask no questions and then do something the customer doesn't want. Because in our experience, that always leads to we do something the customer doesn't like, and then it has to be redone, and then that's more time and money, and it's just not ideal for anybody. So over communication, I would say, is probably more important.
There are very few decisions that I do not get the customer to weigh in on. Something as small as the placement of a niche can be very important to somebody, whereas somebody may not care. You may have somebody who's handicapped or somebody who needs extra access, and if I hadn't considered that, we would have installed it as a standard, and it would not work for you, and that can be huge.
Yeah.
In addition to how much we communicate with you, it's important to ask your contractor their level of communication, and if you don't get a call back, red flag. Also, we want to communicate with you how you like to be communicated with. So it's a very customized experience. If you want us to make decisions for you, we can help with that. If you want to be involved in everything, that's perfect. However you want it to be, we're here to accommodate. Another big question as a homeowner you should ask is, what if an installer is installing something and I'm not happy with it and I can't communicate what I want?
Yeah, so again, and I touched on this in the previous in the previous question, but it's just going to be critically important that your contractor lays out who you should be communicating with throughout your project. So if you have an installer there and for some reason the foreman's not there, then it has to be some type of communication with the assistant project manager, design manager, or project manager. But again, I would just say the critical aspect of this is just to make sure that you have a laid out communication plan from your contractor prior to the work starting. Like, that's just a very important question that you need to ask that contractor, of how they communicate with you, or who you should be communicating with throughout the project.
Final question. Always ask your contractor about timeline and budget.
Yeah, so I mean, timeline again kind of touches on asking the contractor how many projects they have going on. I feel for contractors on this one because it is a tough question to answer. I normally always answer in time ranges, right? So if it's a kitchen, depending on how big the kitchen is, I'm going to say it's going to be 4 to 6 weeks, or it's going to be 6 to 8 weeks. And I mean, that's about as accurate as I can possibly be, right? So like in our service agreements, I'll always say like, hey, this is your estimated start date, which I almost put as like a start month. And then I have like an end month. Just because like, I would ask you as the customer to kind of, have some empathy for us, because like this is a line of work where things don't go as planned, right? If you're doing outside work, like things like weather can affect you, which is completely outside of the contractor's control. In fact, in every service agreement, at least for us in our state, in every service agreement, it requires us to say, like, if the contract takes longer or if we don't start on this specific date, it does not qualify as abandonment. So it doesn't mean that we're basically not doing our jobs, or it doesn't mean, like, legally speaking, that we're liable for that, right? So it just means that, and that's really important in this industry, because there are things that just don't go as expected, right? Like, we can open a wall and find something that's like, oh, this is going to cost us another week. So I think, like, you as the customer, like, you have to expect that, and you have to be understanding of that aspect. However, the other side of that is, okay, a project that should have taken 6 to 8 weeks, if the contractor's only working like 2 or 3 of those days per week, like, I would say that's a red flag. So like, that's not a situation where the contractor is running into things that is causing the project to go longer, or things out of his control. That's something that's in his control that they're not actually delivering on. So I think that's important when it comes to timeline. And those are just things to probably keep in your mind as far as consideration goes.
Also, as we see very often while we're in someone's house, they're thinking, hey, you're here. What about this? What about this? And they often ask us to add on small items or even larger items to their project, and this can add to our timeline. We always want to consider the current client while also considering our schedule, and we will work it out. But keeping in mind that if you're asking for extra things, those are not part of the original timeline, and we will definitely try to incorporate them, but that may affect our timeline down the road for future clients, as well as your current timeline of your project.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, I would say probably, if I need to put a percentage on it, I would say definitely a majority, maybe even like 70 or so percent of our clients probably want to add on work as we're doing it. And we want to be able to knock that out, and we want to accommodate our customer too, because like, if we're there doing work, it's already intrusive, we're already causing them the inconvenience. It's like, we want to knock this out while we're there, and odds are, like, you're going to want us to add maybe a little bit to your project too. So that's another reason as to why timeline may extend a little bit, and also to budget. So I think that's a good kind of segue into budget. We try to be as gentle as we possibly can on change orders. I think what's very important, and this is I think a critical thing to ask your contractor, is like, how do you handle change orders as they come up? You got to be really careful of kind of bait and switch contractors, right? Like, if you see a price that's almost too good to be true up front for a remodel project that we're doing, that's why we always recommend, probably getting multiple quotes.
Check the materials.
Well, check the materials, but also too, if you're getting a price that's too good to be true, you could very well be in a situation where that contractor is going to lock you in, start the work, and then start to add on some change order stuff throughout the way. And that, $30K could very well end up $50, $60K. And that's something that's conscious that the contractor is actually doing on purpose. But you don't want to be in a bait and switch situation. So I think you need to ask questions, and that's something that you just need to be prepared for, when you're doing a remodel, when you're interviewing and hiring a contractor. But again, as far as budget goes and change orders, we try to be as gentle as possible. But at the same time, every single change order that's added to the project, it has to be agreed to and executed in writing. And for us, like, we make sure that's in writing And if it's large enough, we even ask for an additional deposit if it's a large enough change order on a project. But what I always say to our customers is like, look, we put all of our allowances and budgets for various selection items within our contract so that you can see like, hey, this is your material budget, and we are going to recommend things to you that are within that budget. If you decide that you want to pay for something that's more expensive, or you want to put something that's maybe higher end into your project, then you are making that conscious choice to go over budget, and that's what may cause a change order. We try to put you in the driver's seat and making those decisions and being in control of the cost. Now, that being said, there are going to be unexpected things that come up, but we just do our best to communicate that with you, with empathy, try to get you to understand kind of what's going on. If we can absorb some of it, we can. But there are times where we do have to add change orders because of unexpected things. And again, we just go through that process of getting it in writing, an agreement, and then we normally collect the payment for those, as needed along the way. Ideally at the end of the project, but if it's large enough, like I said, then we will charge, a deposit on the spot for those. But those are just examples of things that can affect timeline and budget.
And you will always be aware of how much the change order is, what work will be needed, and you will give the go-ahead. We won't move forward with anything until you give your say-so.
You should be, right? Like, again, like this is...
With us.
with a good, reliable contractor, that's how it should be. You do not want to be in a situation where the contractor does something and then says, hey, we did this. This is how much you owe us for it. It's like...
Without you knowing?
That's
good.
No good, yeah. And for our company, we have design management services throughout the project. So let me ask you this. For somebody who hasn't worked with a designer, what is that like?
So providing the design service, I think, is an essential part of a renovation. When you're doing these projects, there are things that we have seen by doing so many kitchens, baths, renovations that you may not know about, and having a designer who can give you insight into styles and trends, whether you want to follow them, as well as stylistically placing things or doing something that has a resale in mind. All of these things the designer provides, and that can help your project go smoothly, as well as you may be happier with the end result because the designer gives you advice and then also takes into consideration your taste and current trends.
Okay, and then so typically when you work with a designer, like, do you have to bring your own ideas, or is it something that kind of the designer takes like full care of?
So it can go both ways. You don't have to bring anything, but for the designer to really get a sense of your style and taste, Pinterest is obviously a huge thing these days, and it can really help you find what you like, because that can vary across a lot of different styles, as well as it can help the designer get in your head and get a sense of your taste pretty quickly. If you don't have any ideas, the designer will, of course, bring some ideas and take you shopping and do a lot of things to sort of get into that headspace. In addition to working with a designer, our designers on staff have interior design experience, and this is huge when you're installing the permanent parts of your home. Space planning for rooms, putting up walls, taking down walls. Interiors are the end result of a lot of these projects, and if you don't consider what you're going to be putting in the space and you take a wall down, you may not have a place to put your bed in your bedroom. So having a designer who can also consider the interior aspects of the end result of your project is super important.
Speaking of items that are existing in the house, like what about using and designing around pieces that are existing in like a kitchen or bathroom, for example?
So if you wanted to keep your vanity in your bathroom, it's fine. There's no issues with it. I would say that the thing that I find most obvious is after we do a renovation, the room is beautiful, the finishing is amazing, everything is perfect, and then you have this vanity that was great before, it was fine, but now it looks like it's been used because it's not brand new. You don't have to get everything brand new. However, when the whole room has been redone, the older pieces can sometimes feel a little dingy, and so we recommend that we look at the project as a whole and design. If you have a piece that you want to use, we can definitely incorporate that. However, typically in bathrooms, you're going to find that anything that's left over from before that we put back in, it's not going to look as nice, and you're going to find yourself going, I wish I had just gotten that new vanity, which we have in our budget anyway. This is more for interiors. Interior designers can use existing pieces and incorporate those stylistically, but during a renovation, we pull everything out of the room, typically if we're doing a kitchen or a bathroom, and everything that's going in is fresh, new, paint, trim, all of it. So anything that's been kind of dinged up or been in use for more than a couple of years is going to feel as if it's old and it does not fit.
All right, and I've talked a little bit about allowances and how that can affect the budget. So will the designer know my budget?
Yes, the designer is fully aware of all of the allowances that are on your project, and we've selected for a lot of different projects, so we have an idea of certain materials and how much they cost. There is a very specific materials budget that we have, and if anything we select were to go above, you will always have that information ahead of time, and you can always consider something that's more high end, but we will not typically show you anything that's out of your budget. And if we do, we say that up front so you can consider that. And if you have a very tight budget and you absolutely do not want to go outside of that, let us know. We're kind of used to people upgrading, and so we're flexible, and we try to keep it that way so you can get what you want.
Okay, so along those lines, like we get customers that ask us a lot, like, well, what if I want to buy stuff myself? What if I want to buy the material myself? Like, what do I do in that type of situation?
So if you wanted to buy the material yourself, I think we would be open to that. It's typically a lot easier and more streamlined if we order it for you. There's also contractor discounts that we get. So in terms of staying within those allowances,
yeah, we're probably getting a better price than you are.
Right. So if you want to buy your materials, that is something we can discuss. But when we are managing the project, designing the project, and handling all of the moving details, ship dates, deliveries, all of those things are much easier to manage when we're managing it all and doing the ordering. If you really wanted to place an order materials, that would be something we could discuss.
All right, that's all we got for you today, homies. If you have any questions, feel free to leave us something down in the comments. We are here to be a valuable home service to you. We will talk to you soon.
Later, homies.